Mike Meltser does shows for Mad Dog Sports Radio on Sirius XM. He's also an attorney in Houston. He works. He actually was late coming on the show because he was on a big conference call at his law firm. He had a meeting that he couldn't get out of. But now he's kind enough to make time for me because I went on his show and prattled on about Jameis Winston and things like that over the weekend on Mad Dog Sports. And now Mike Meltser is going to tell us, based on what came out of everything yesterday, Mike, is Deshaun Watson going to get traded?
I think he will because he wants to be traded, and the Texans at some point don't want him on their team because I think they reached a point with the allegations that I don't think Janice McNair and Cal McNair want to have Deshaun around. So I do think that Deshaun will get traded. Yesterday could delay that a bit. By the way, do you guys want to know what the definition of a deposition actually is?
Isn't it just giving sworn evidence?
Basically, it's the part of the discovery process, and discovery, for those who don't know, is basically, in a civil case, it is the process by which both parties exchange information. And they do that in a couple of ways. Like you send questions, admissions, interrogatories, you can ask for documents, text messages, all that. And one of the key parts of discovery is a deposition, which is where you get to take the deposition of one of the parties or somebody else who has relevant evidence, and your lawyer gets to question that person under oath. So It is an important part of the discovery process.
So explain to me, like I'm an 8-year-old or a guy who gets drunk watching football games every Sunday, where we are at with the Watson investigation right now, Mike. Where are we in the process that you're the legal process?
Well, so that's a good question because there are two legal processes, Andrew, that are happening right at the same time. And that's what led to everything that happened yesterday because as people, I'm guessing, know by this point, there is an open criminal investigation in Houston into Deshaun Watson. And based on what his lawyer, Rusty Hardin, argued yesterday in court, it sounds like April 1st is going to be the key date by which we know whether Deshaun Watson is going to be indicted by a grand jury, basically charged with a crime, or not charged with a crime. So that process seems like, according to Rusty Hardin, is winding down, allegedly, while the civil side continues through discovery, and we have this issue of exactly when the accusers can start taking Deshaun Watson's deposition.
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. Unlike you, I'm not a lawyer. Unlike Andrew, I did not take, and presumably because he wouldn't tell us his score, crush the LSATs. I'm just a guy here. But it seems like Deshaun Watson has a whole lot of off-field hurdles to get through, legal hurdles, civil hurdles to jump over, and not even necessarily he's going to successfully jump over them. Obviously, none of us know that, before you can even think about this guy as a member of a football team again. Correct me if I'm wrong here or if I'm oversimplifying it.
I don't think, Chris, you're oversimplifying it necessarily. And in the legal world, things typically take a long time relative to what people might expect in the real world. Like, if a case wraps up in a year, that's actually, on the civil side, that's actually pretty quick. Now, this is a situation where it's February 2022. We first heard about all these accusations and allegations against Deshaun in the middle of last March. So we are, give or take, 11 months into this process. He's got a bunch of legal hurdles, but based on what the hearing was yesterday and the back and forth between both sides, it also could come together relatively quickly. Like, let's say, best case scenario for Deshaun Watson, nothing happens with the grand jury. They do what's called a no bill. They don't indict him. All of a sudden, that provides him with theoretically more leverage. The accusers, the plaintiffs, might have more to lose by going forward. Then maybe he can quickly wrap up and settle all these matters. And I'd remind people, we don't know if this is definitively true or not, but there was a report, I think, on Pro Football Talk around the trade deadline that if the Texans and Dolphins were going to consummate a trade, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, was leaning on Watson to settle these cases. Apparently they came close on 18 of the 22. There were 4 holdouts, and therefore there was no sort of global settlement. But that could happen really at a moment's notice, theoretically. The criminal part is the part that these parties don't have any control over.
Mike Meltser, he's an attorney based in Houston and a talk show host on Mad Dog Sports Radio. The legal tampering period in the NFL starts March 14th. Am I crazy to think out loud here that you don't feel like this is all going to be wrapped up by then? That if somebody makes a move for Watson in the next few weeks, it's going to be kind of at their own risk, peril kind of deal?
Yeah, Pony, if you're trading for Deshaun Watson, I think by March 14th, based on what Rusty Hardin's saying, that we will know one way or the other by April 1st on the criminal front, that you have to be willing to trade for Deshaun Watson with no guarantees on the legal front. Now, there might be some teams that might actually be advised to do that. I think about the Carolina Panthers, where it feels like everyone's going to get fired like 10 games into the season. He's from that area, or at least he played college football there. Maybe they're a team that might be willing to make that sort of trade. But I would say, looking at the events of yesterday, kind of combining the law side and the football side, it makes me think that a Watson trade is probably more likely in the before NFL draft period than the before free agency period.
All right,
that's
Mike,
my 2 cents.
Before we let you run, litigate this one for us. I get takeout from a restaurant on Sunday. Restaurant is busy. I ask hostess if both bags of food on the counter were for me. She says yes. I take both bags. I never check the receipts. I get home with both bags of food. One bag is mine. The other bag is someone else's. Is it my responsibility to call the restaurant and tell them, return the bag to the restaurant, or do I just eat both bags of food? Legally, I would this.
All right, I don't remember the property law like all that well in that situation, but because she affirmatively told you, Andrew, that there were your bags, you didn't steal it. You had no intent to steal it. It was given to you by the restaurant. Now, I'd say ethically, as a human, what I would do
he doesn't care about that, Mike. Don't worry. He wasn't asking you for ethics. I assure you of that.
Yes. I mean, what I would do is I'd probably call them and let them know. I don't think they're going to, take it back.
They can't take it. We've had other people tell us there's way too much liability once the food leaves the kitchen. If it comes back, somebody could have done anything with it off premises.
Like the kid from the New York Post who almost died from the Chinese food.
Would you get away from the sepsis over there?
All right.
Anyway.
So ethically,
listen,
tell them.
The big thing with theft or larceny is the intent. Andrew Filipponi, even though I've known him for a long time, he had no intent to steal that second bag. I think that much is clear.
Mike, did you think I was a ladies' man in college?
Well, you were definitely more than I was, which is a hell of a low bar. So I'd say compared to me, definitely yes. I'm not sure about compared to the average Syracuse, male student at the time. I'm sure you did okay.
Which of these two things was more attracted to Andrew Filipponi, the opposite sex or the fists of angry guys on campus?
That's a good question. I actually regret not going out with Andrew more during college because I feel like there were a lot of stories that I missed.
Because you'd have just looked good you would have looked good by comparison next to him.
He was
given all
studying
the
to become a
stories
lawyer
I've
and become far more successful than me. Thank you for.
I would say from a female standpoint, like if I went out with Andrew, I would have been seen by the women as like, okay, Mike is like maybe the safer option of these two. So maybe it would have helped me, but you never know with what women are interested in that sort of area of their life.
Mike Meltser, attorney.
That was
talk show host on Mad Dog Sports Radio.
That was a very good explanation.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.